This is Ty Anderson for Add-In Express, and in this video, part 3 of our end-to-end demo series, we'll extend the work that we've already done in parts 1 and 2 to interact with the Office object models and Office events. Now for this scenario, what we'll do is we'll take the different task panes we have, the Excel, PowerPoint, and Word task panes, and we're going to drop in some controls that allow us to work with a custom tasks database that I've built inside of Access, and it will hold, or this database will hold custom, or not custom, but task data outside of Outlook and display them inside of these different Office applications, Excel, PowerPoint, and Word, so that I can create tasks as I work with documents inside of these applications. We'll finish the demo by then extending this form so that it actually does something, and it's also going to display this custom task data from Access, and then will allow us to create Outlook tasks by selecting tasks inside of this task pane and then creating tasks inside of Outlook. And if you're wondering how many times I can say tasks in one sentence, I think the over-under might be 10. Okay, moving on, let's look at the Access database that I've created, and I'll just go to my folder here, Demos, and I have a tasks Access database in the 2007 and 2010 format. And if I look here, I can open the table, just double click on it, and we'll see that I have an ID column, title column, a percent complete column, due date, source, and link. And I'll open in Design View just so we can look through it. The ID is our unique value, and it's just an auto number, long integer type. Then we have a title, which is 150 characters in its text. The percent complete is a number, a double, and then due date is a date and time, and then source and link are both text. And what we'll do, the title will obviously be the task title, and the percent complete will be a decimal amount that from 0 to 1 that represents the percentage of the task completion. Then the due date would be our expected due date when we want to have it done. The source will end up being the Microsoft application we use to create the task, and then a link would just be the file path to the Office file we used when we created this task. So I will close this and close that. And now what we'll do is open up the ADX Excel Task Pane 1, and we will add this tasks database to our project and then also populate it onto this task pane. And to do that, actually the easiest way is to go back, and I'll go to my demos folder, and we'll just drag and drop this onto our solution file, and then Visual Studio will open up the wizard that will allow us to import our file. Automatically it scans the database and looks for views and tables, and in this case I only have the tasks table, and I'll just go ahead and select it, select all the fields, and I like the dataset name, task dataset, and I'll click finish. Once imported, I should be able to come over here to say data and then show data sources, and that opens up the data sources pane or window pane inside of Visual Studio, and I can grab this task node underneath the task data set and drag it onto my Excel task pane. And just want to show you have a couple options. The default is the data grid view, and then I also have the option of doing a details form. The data grid view would list all the records, and the details form would be one record at a time and allow me to scroll through all the records. But I want the grid view, and I'm just going to place it right here on my task pane. There we go. And then I want to set it so that it's docked inside the parent container. It takes up all the space. And we'll see here now that we have this grid view with some controls that allow us to move through the fields, and also a plus, delete, and a save button. And then also too, you see our data set controls, the task data set, the binding source, the table adapter manager, and the binding navigator. Now that we have our controls and the data set controls on here, I'm going to grab this grid. I'll make sure it's selected, and we can see in the properties that the task data grid view is the selected object. And then I'm going to hold down my shift key, and I'm going to select all the objects down below it, and we'll do a copy, and I'm going to open up the PowerPoint task pane, and from here I'll just say paste, and it's going to take all those controls and paste them in, and I can right click in this area and then line up icons. We'll see that everything is there, and then we're going to do the same thing for the Word task pane and the Outlook form. We'll paste, line up the controls, and I'll close and save. I'll do the same thing for PowerPoint because we don't want them right now. But they're all going to use these same elements, and we'll do something slightly different with each. And then lastly, let's do this and do a paste, and then line up the icons, and we're golden. Now we have all of our task panes have the exact same set of controls, and what we'll do now is I'll close everything out except for our Excel task pane, and let's start doing a little bit of code. The first thing we'll want to do is take this Add New Item button, double click it to stub out the click event, and then we're going to create an object for our Add-in Express module. We'll call it ADX mod. We'll cast it as an add-in module, and it's just, we can grab the this.addin module. Now with that in hand, we can take, I'm going to, excuse me while I hide these real quick, but then now we can take our task data grid view, we can take the current row and the cells, and in this case we'll take the title cell, .value, and I'm going to use the Add-in Express mod object to get to the Excel application. And this is a key point. You can use the Add-in Express module to get to all the Excel or to all the applications that we've targeted in our add-in, which in this case we have the Excel app, there's the PowerPoint app, there's the Word app, and then there's also the Outlook app, all available to us. And so if you're familiar with VBA, once you get to the application, you know that you can get to all the objects available within that application's object model. So again, here I'm working with Excel, as this task pane targets Excel, and I will take the Excel app, the active cell, and the value. So what this will do, I'm going to take whatever the value is of the active cell inside of Excel and insert it into the title column. Let's do this again to current row, cells. In this one, I want to take the source column and here we'll do the app name. So the Excel app.name, which should be Microsoft Excel. And let's do one more column. And here is link. And we'll just grab the Excel, the active workbooks file path. And we'll just grab active workbook and then do full name, which if it isn't saved, it'll be book 1, book 2, book 3, or something like that. But if it is a saved file, it will be the full path. Okay, so let's go back. And let's tackle the save button. Again, I'm just going to double click the save button to stub out the event. It should take us right to the save item click event where we already have 3 lines of code where we validate the form, we end editing, and we update everything that's in the grid, basically, which the table adapter manager object actually handles that. In our case, I want to go ahead and grab a couple of the lines right here because we're going to, we're going to copy them, and then we're going to place them right here in this method as well. A little bit of duplication of code, but it's a demo, so I figure it's okay. But what we want to do here, again, I also wanted to grab this too, but I'll copy and paste. And so what we're doing, again, we're grabbing the Add-in Express module and we're using that to get to the Excel app where I want to insert the app name in the source field and the active workbook's full name in the link field. And what this does is it handles the situation where if the user entered data straight into the grid, right over here, and just use the grid view here to insert, and it's going to overwrite whatever they put as the source in the link. But that's okay because we know how it works. But that's what we want to do with the save event right here, and then everything else be the same, and that's good. Now let's take the event from the code from the load event this code that takes the task data set and fills the table adapter with the data from the data set. And what I'll do is copy, and I want to paste it right here in the save item click event. And I want to do the same thing underneath the add new item. And this is just for convenience. There are other ways to do this, but what we'll do is after we end the update, or excuse me, in the edit mode and update the task data set, then we go ahead and just refill the table adapter, which causes the grid to reload the data reflecting the changes we have made. There's also another thing we need to do, and that's implement the code we've written in this Excel task pane, the add new item click event, the load event, and the save item event. We need to implement this code in the PowerPoint task pane and the Word task pane. And the easiest way to do that is to create the events in the task pane, just like we've done here in the Excel task pane, and then copy and paste the code into the appropriate events in those task panes. But the key thing we'll need to do, though, there is to change the PowerPoint, or change the reference to Excel app to PowerPoint app or Word app, and then also it's slightly different objects in those object models, but they're easy enough to find. Just know that, well, we're not going to do it here, but just know that no, we're not going to take the time to do that in this video. Just know that you need to do that in your code to make this work correctly. But in subsequent videos, I will have already have done this. In the next video, in the video after that, I'll have implemented this code as needed. But for the sake of time, at least you know about it. But we're not going to do that now, and we'll just move on. Also, too, I think I want to repin my windows just real quick. And before we test it, now that I'm actually looking at the grid, I realize we've forgotten one key step, and that is to edit the column names to match the names in our code. So let's just go over here to edit columns, and we'll leave. Actually, we'll change this to ID. We'll change the title to title. Percent complete. Let's change to percent complete. There's really no rocket science behind the names. We'll use due date. I'm just going to double click that one. Select everything and say source, and then link. Now, if you're following along, been paying attention, you'll realize that all the column names on the other forms are incorrect as well. So I'll save, and then let's just copy this control, and let's move down and change the code or the control for each one of these so that it's using the updated column names in each case. So delete, just right click and do paste, save all, and we're good. I'm going to close all these back down just to focus more on the Excel version. And now let's get into building some code, and I'll go to the add-in module, and we want to start with our task add-in context menu. And if you remember, this is just, it adds a button to the right-click context menu that's available inside of Excel when we right-click on a cell in our spreadsheet. And for this guy, I want to stub out an event, and this event will actually call this method called create task. And we're going to leave it stubbed out for now as well. We'll tab that over, try to align it. And so let's just call create task. And what's going to happen in create task is we are going to call something that we haven't created yet, which will be to take our tasks data set in the Solution Explorer. I'll double click and open that. And what I want to do, in here we see the data model for the task table, with ID, title, percent complete, due date, and all of that. And we also see a method called fill that's going to get data for us. And what I want to do is add a query. And so what I did was I right-clicked in here and said add query, which opens up the table adapter query configuration wizard. And I want to use SQL statements to add a new SQL to my data set. And in this case, I want to select the insert, and which will add a new row to the table. And we see here it's insert into tasks, and it has all the columns and then question marks for the values, which we will provide those values later. So I'll click next. We'll just say insert, instead of insert query, I want to call it insert tasks. Say next and finish. And then I'll save. And now I have two methods. Close tasks, and let's go back here to the add-in module. Let's actually make this a method. Forgot to do that previously, but for create task, what I want to do is say I want to call a new add-in ADX Excel task pane 1, and I'll call it XLTP, and we'll say XLTP equals ADX Excel task pane as the type or as the cast, and it's this ADX Excel task panes collection item, and this is a collection of all our task panes, the Excel task panes, and I want to get the task pane instance. And let's collapse those windows, make everything easier to see. So now I have the current instance of my task pane, or my Excel task pane, and what I want to do now is say tasks data set table adapters, and from there I want to get the task table adapter, and we'll call it TA. We'll say it equals a new task data set table adapters tasks table adapter. And we'll create a date time object. Call that DTM, and we'll say that it equals now. And now I want to grab the title or create a title string, and we'll say it equals this Excel app active cell, and then value, just like we've done previously. There we go. Now we can call from our table adapter, we can call the insert tasks method, which we just created, and we can pass the title, and we see next that we need the decimal, and I'm just going to say it's 0. We'll hard code it for here. And then we'll say the date, or the due date. I'm going to use the one I just created. We'll set the due date as now. And then the source, which will be, once again, this Excel app name. And then the link will be this .Excel app active workbook full name. And the last thing we need to do is call our task pane, and this isn't going to pop up for us at first, but we want to call the tasks table adapter, call its fill method, and we'll pass the task pane task data set, and that will refill everything. But the reason we're getting the red squigglies right now is we need to go over here and modify our properties here. So let's start with the task data set, and we need to set this to internal, and the table adapter, we need to set that to internal. Save it. Let's go back over here now. We should be all right. Let's try. There we go. All right, very good. Now we should be all right. Okay. Okay, let's go ahead and build the solution, and let's just take this for a test drive. All right, the build succeeded, and one thing we want to do is also make sure to register the ADX project. Okay, and that was successful. So now let's just do the start debugging, and what we'll open is Excel 2010, which is the default application, or the startup application I've set for the debugger. And when Excel opens, we should see my tasks down below with no tasks in there because I don't have any yet. And let's start. Let's demo the three things we'll do. One is just to enter inside the grid, and I can say sample task. I'll actually call this sample Excel task. We'll say 0. Do February 1st as my due date. The source and the link fields, we'll just leave them blank because when I hit the save button, it's going to fill them in for us. We'll see that once we've done that, we've got a new record here. The source is filled into Microsoft Excel, the name of the currently opened application. And the link is to book 1, which, because I haven't saved the file to the file system, that's what we have. So what I'll do is I'll save it now. Go to my demos folder and call it tasks book and click save. And so now we'll see the file name up here in the header of the Excel window. And next what I want to do is say sample, or actually let's do ties sample active cell task. Okay, select it again, and we'll do the add new button, which inserts the task. And I don't have any values for percentage complete or due date, but then we notice now in the link we see the full path and file name of our workbook. And last of all, what I want to do is say, let's do a sample context menu task. And I can now right click, and we see our create task button, and I should be able to click that, and we'll have another task with percent complete, 0, the time set to now, and then the link and everything working as we should. And so what I'm going to do now is we'll just close here. I'm not going to save anything. And we'll go back to our add-in module where we're going to do some more coding. But for this video, we'll stop it right here. And in the next video, we'll get into coding the ribbon, we'll code the command bars, and we'll code the backstage. And that will finish this demo in terms of connecting add-in Express objects with Office objects and events.